Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening for another very special edition of WOWSA Live with our host, Ned Denison. Ned?
Hello, everyone. I'm the chairperson of the International Marathon Swimming Hall of Fame. We have a special guest with us today, Irene van der Laan from the Netherlands. Irene, say hello to everyone.
Hello, everybody.
Irene, tell us about your early swimming before you got into marathons.
Well, it's a big surprise that I got into swimming because we went to the beach in the summer on a Sunday, but we never went in the water. And I think I went once to a swimming pool before I had to get my lessons when I got 6 years old. And that was 3 times a week. And my mother was always in a bad mood because we had to go to the pool and it was almost dinner time. So I don't know why I got a swimmer. And I only got my lessons and then I went to the swimming club and yeah, I just tried to do a crawl and the trainer said, oh, you can come more often. And that's how it started. I was always the smallest, I think also not the fastest, but I really enjoy to be in the team, and it was very motivating because we swim in one lane and the other lanes were the swimmers who trained for the Olympics. It was not separate in separate hours or, and we were one of the best teams in the country. So I looked at them, you know, they were maybe 14 or 16 years old and I was 8 or 9. It was a big surprise that I could swim in the same pool at the same time. And then I did some races and then 12, 13 years, I went for the first time to an open water event and I liked it so much. And when I was 14, I was winning some prizes. And that was also very new for me, because I was not the fastest in the pool. And with 15 years, I did my first 16K open water swim. And I came out and I said, I'm not sure if I will do it again next week, because we had 2 events in the Netherlands of 16K. And after not swimming the whole week, I swim again 16K in the same time, 4 hours 18. I think that was the start of many more swims.
Your first IJsselmeer was age 17?
Yes.
And was this was this big time for you, the IJsselmeer? Was this the first big marathon, or were the other ones very important as well?
Yeah, the 16K were in feel easier water. And then I swam the IJsselmeer and I swam very bad the first time. It was wavy and I think I was one of the last. And then I understood, you know, I have to do more different training. And then the year after I went to the Windermere International Championships and I came in 3rd. So also internationally in a few years, you know, I was only 18.
And were you still an amateur at that point, or had you turned professional?
No, I turned professional when I was 22, and that was because, you know, I swam 2 times the Windermere International, I swam the English Channel, I went to Faroes Marathon. I wanted to do longer distances. And then there was only one option. And I finished my study. I thought, what can I lose? Let's go there and see what it is. And you know, for me, the most important thing was the longer distances. And maybe if I could break even with the expenses, that was the goal.
You've traveled all over the world swimming. What are some of your best experiences?
Well, one of the best is Lake St. John, especially the double. That was so special to swim in the dark. And Yeah, it was the hardest to get invited because only 6 swimmers were invited. And at that time, it was at the right time in my life. I could swim, you know, forever in my, in my dreams maybe, but 18 hours swimming, that was for me not that difficult.
And there was one year where there were 3 of you finished. Um, you were right behind the 2 men, 64 kilometers in fresh water in Canada.
Yes, but my coach said, you still have a chance to win because you're almost on the same line. But afterwards, Claudio made you know, a bit of zigzag just to win off Philip. And that's, I think I could come a bit closer, but at the end, they were still faster.
And any big surprises as you traveled around the world? Some of our honorees talk about the party in Lake Saint Jean with their name on the car as a sort of a, wow, you know, kind of could not believe this excitement in this small place in Canada. Did you have any big surprises?
Yeah, big surprises. There are too many. But I think for me, the friendship you make with all the people, it's not only the swimming. You go somewhere and then in a week, you know, you get to know so many people and all the people who are involved in the organization and your boat driver and maybe your coach if you haven't bought your own coach, and host family. That, you know, you never knew I go for a swim, but what's going to happen, you know? It's not only the 10 hours or some in the water, and especially the circumstances of the water that are always the big surprise.
Your father was your coach in the boat for several races. Tell us about that experience. Did he change your relationship with your father?
Well, you know, it's true that, you know, like he had to bring me to races, and then, yeah, in open water, you need somebody in the boat. So, of course, it was, yeah, no discussion that he should do that. And then later on, it was more like he came with me in the beginning of traveling, because I was not, you know, I was afraid to fly. So of course to Canada you have to fly. So, you know, before we never went on a holiday with a flight, you know. So this was all new for me and my father. After a few years, you know, I realized that he could not come to all my races because he was working too. And then I wanted to go, you know, on my own, and not all the time with my dad traveling and 24 hours together. And so after a while I went to travel alone and looking for local coaches, and that was different than with my dad. And my dad couldn't swim, you know. It has been really a surprise that it all went okay.
And when he was in the boat, was he always telling you you were fantastic, or did sometimes he yell at you?
No, he was a quiet person. He was very quiet. That was also another thing. Like, I was the boss, and he was only there to give the drinks. And of course, he was good enough to know the course. And but I always had the feeling, you know, I was the boss.
And when he stopped going, did you have more of a social life on the trips?
Yes, much better.
Yeah, I think that smile said it all. Your father ended up as an officer in the Marathon Federation. Tell us how that happened, and can you think of some changes that he was responsible for bringing in?
Well, at that moment we were such a little group. And also most of the swimmers, they came along to the marathon. So if you know, if somebody comes a few times, then already they think, oh, maybe this man can help us out. But unfortunately, my father had not a lot of money. That would have been much better, that he could sponsor, you know, our low budget. But, you know, he was always willing to help. And at that time, we were a really little sport. And after we got to know Val and Roger Parsons, then it started to grow, and my father was the treasurer.
Okay. You swam the English Channel at a very early age the first time. Was the English Channel something you had in your mind for many, many years, or how did you end up there?
No, not for many years, because, you know, I was only 18. And maybe I start to think about swimming the channel, maybe 15 or 16 years old, because, you know, the English Channel is I think, the only swimming event in open water, you know, what everybody knows about. So there were not many races. So I thought, well, it's a challenge to train for the English Channel. And, you know, you have to find a sponsor and a place to train in the sea, because, you know, you need a boat to have good training. So I went to the local lifeguards there. And so it was, yeah, it was a nice challenge instead of doing a race.
Did you have help and advice from other Dutch swimmers who had been across the channel?
I only asked Joke van Staveren, because I think she swam the year before me, or 2 years before me. And yeah, it's so surprisingly that we have a history in our sport with so many champions, but I've never met them at that time, because they never came to races. Of course, you know, now with internet, it's easy to contact somebody. And so I had no knowledge. But I trained with another guy, Tom Brouwer. We started at the same time with the longer swims. And sometimes I went to Eindhoven to train with him. And so all the time, you know, we were exchanging what we knew. And finally, we swam on the same day, and we had the same time.
Two different boats?
No, we didn't start it together.
Ooh, same boat. Wow.
No, not same boat, no.
And were you racing him?
No, because I think we almost have done the same course, but it was not that I saw his boat. Okay. But we ended up about the same time, and then the boats went to each other, and we asked each other, "What's your time?"
Fantastic. You went back in 1982 and had the fastest time that year. Were you trying to break a record? Was that your motivation?
No, I was going for the double, and then halfway they said, "Oh, you're really on a good schedule, and you know, maybe world record." But I had two tankers, and that may have been the problem, not to break the record. But then, you know, they pushed me a bit, and when I came in France, I said, "I'm not coming back. I'm so tired." But then the year after I went back, and I said, "Don't push me, don't tell me anything. I go for the double."
So in 1982, you won the Rolex for the fastest swim. Where's that Rolex today?
Somewhere in a box.
And in 1983, you set, I think, the world record for the double.
Yes.
And you had the fastest swim for one leg, and you got another Rolex.
Yes, yes.
Is it in the same box?
No, it's in another box and on another place.
Okay, but you know where these are.
Yeah, I still have them.
And
Of
did you
course.
go? Did you go to the CSA dinners those years?
I went once, I think. I think the first year I swam the channel, I went there.
Okay.
But that are not my favorite dinners.
Tell us more about this famous swim in Lake Saint Jean, the double with Claudio, Phil Rush, and you. Um, did you want to do the long distance from the moment you knew about it? How difficult was it to convince them? And tell us about the swim.
Well, the first year they organized it, I was not invited. And it was the year after I broke this record in the channel, something you could compare, but I was not invited. So the second year I got in, I was of course very excited to do this, because that was something, you know, I knew I could do so well, because in 10-hour swims, you know, I was not winning all the time, and I thought, you know, I have more chance. And of course the prize money was very attractive, and it's so special. Also because you're only with 6, so you feel already when you're there, you know, you're invited and start 10 o'clock in the dark. It was so nice. I can cry you there.
No,
But you know, so many people were there before they went to party. And, because Lake St. John is only about party for the other people. But you know, in the harbor, you know, you heard all the people clapping that you were leaving, and then the silence in the lake. It's so beautiful. I love to swim in the dark. For me, they can organize all races in the night. I'm not afraid. And of course, you know, with every swim, you depend on your coach and your boat driver. So that's the nicest thing of this swims, I think.
and in the night, were you knowing where the other swimmers were, or you just focused on swimming?
Well, it was of course the start. So you could see the other boats with a very little light, and of course the coach could say, you know, you're first or second or last, but it was something you knew there was still so long hours to go. So that was just peaceful and swim and get to the other. The nicest thing is you get to the other side when it's getting daylight. So by the time you see something, you know, there was something to see.
And
And
did
then
they tell? Go ahead.
And then you have very nice turning in Peribonka, where, you know, the years before there was the start, and then you still have to do the same thing, what you normally do.
Did they tell you when the other swimmers were dropping out? I think only 3 of you finished. Did they say this person is
But
done?
that's with every race. You're all the time waiting for the news that others are getting out, especially the ones in front of you.
Oh yeah. And do you remember when you knew you were the only woman left and there were only 3 of you? Do you remember that moment when they told you?
No, I think that, let me see, let me remember. it was the year that Monique dropped out. And that was, of course, a big surprise. And I had my Dutch coach, and so he knew, and he told me right away, of course.
Was Monique one of your toughest competitors?
Yes, I swam. Yeah, we started together in the pro races in the same years. So we swam all the time, almost. I think I've bet her maybe only 2 times, and if I won, it was because she didn't participate.
Who were the other tough competitors for you?
Well, at that moment there were not many till Shelley came.
Shelley Taylor-Smith.
Yeah.
When I look at your career, one of the interesting things is you have, we have a word in English called a fixture. You've been a fixture at the IJsselmeer and a fixture at Faroes. I don't think they're allowed to run the event without you. And you have been there for 20 years plus, or some incredible number. What is it about these 2 events that brings you back year after year after year?
Well, it's like when I like something, you know, you want to keep it. And that's, you know, with many things in my life. Yeah, Lake St. John, of course, it was so special because of the 64. And then the years after, they made 40, the 32. But to be there, the event is so special, the way they organize it. And, you know, when you go for many years, you get to know so many people. And, you know, you want to see them again. And, you know, a year is over before you know, and we all had also very nice holidays in Canada with my husband and my daughter. We went 3 weeks, 4 weeks to Canada in the US. It was always a dream holiday. But Lake St. John, I've seen it growing, you know, in organization. And I always liked it there. And the people, they admire you there. The finish, it's really special. I think a lot of other events would love, you know, the atmosphere there.
And how about Faroes? What's the attraction of Faroes for you?
The Faroes, it's a beautiful place. I love the water there. It's after so many years, it's still the same. The village, they have built a few more houses, but the view, the old town, everything is still the same. I came there for the first time in 1980. So that's 40 years. I love to be there. I find it beautiful.
But it's not so long to swim.
Yes, but you know, it's end of the season. It's nice to have a small swim.
You haven't convinced them to do an up and back?
It's up and back. It's out of the bay and back.
Okay. But not 64 kilometers.
No, but you know, it's warm, eh? It's not so nice.
You, go ahead.
No.
You also have continued competing in other sports. So tell us about your other sports competitions.
Well, I have been only swimming, and when I got to know my husband, I know he loved to be in the snow and to do cross-country skiing. So first time at Christmas, I went with him. It was so beautiful with the snow, and so now I also love the winter. But cross-country skiing, marathons, you know, it's a very good training for swimming. So it's so nice in the winter to have some kind of a holiday feeling, but still, you know, you work out.
And is your competitive drive the same in the snow as it is in the water?
Yeah, well, with swimming, you know, I still like to win. I know it's not
Yes.
easy anymore, but with cross-country skiing, I'm sometimes I'm winning prizes in my age group, but I'm the last, you know. It's just because I choose the longer distances, and I don't have the cool style. When you start with 30 years old, and I'm afraid to go downhill. So it's sometimes the night before a race, it's like the night before a long swim.
And recently you set the world record in ice swimming at your age for the 1 kilometer.
Yes, that's something new, eh? The ice swimming. It's nice, it's in winter. So it keeps you motivated to train, and yeah, it was a big challenge, especially because I started with the ice mile. It's nice to do something you don't know, eh? If you can make it, and yeah. And I swim the ice mile in the dark, which for me is, of course, much easier.
And when ice swimming was starting in the Netherlands, did you look at it for a few years and go, yeah, I don't know? Or were you in immediately?
No, no, no. I saw the ice mile of Tracy Clark. And when I saw that, you know, oh, yeah, that's not easy.
And you saw me swimming.
That's maybe something for me to try. And my husband, he participated in the 50 meter with training like taking cold showers only 2 times. But I said, you know, if I participate, I go for the longest distance. And the year after we were on the winter sport, so we couldn't participate. And then the year after, I went for the ice mile.
And are you going to do more ice swimming? Are you going to go to Siberia? Are you going to go to Argentina, all these crazy places?
In my heart, yes.
Ah.
Like the Ocean 7, in my heart also. But I
Ah.
think, no. I think somebody has to take me. And everything has to be organized, paid, and then maybe.
We spoke to Cameron Bellamy 1 or 2 days ago, and he said he did the English Channel and he saw the Ocean Sevens. He said, I'm nearly there. I've done one. You must listen to that interview. His logic was very compelling. I've done one. Irene, tell us about what you've done outside of swimming. I'm fascinated by the fact that you do art, and often competitive people do something likewise competitive. They sell for a living, or they try to run a startup company or something. But you have an artistic flair.
Yes, when in school I had to choose my study. It was or sport or art. And I'm very bad in gymnastics. And when you go for sport, you know, at that time, you know, it was like you had to do all the sports also by yourself. And gymnastics was very important, also because most of the people were becoming a teacher. And so I thought that's not a good idea. And it's also not a good idea to be with other sport people all the day. So, you know, it will be very limited. And if you have been sport all day, then you don't want to go to the pool in the evening. I think you're too tired. So I applied for the Academy of Art, and I got in. And I choose the decorating side. And I worked for many years decorating swimming pool, public swimming pools, and but I got fed up with that, and I did a workshop, glass fusing, and I thought this is nice. I always wanted to make prizes for sports events, because I have, of course, many. And most of them, you know, they're in cupboards, or, you know, you don't want to look at them.
They're in the box with the Rolexes, I know.
Yes. So that's, I made another hobby.
Show us one of the pieces behind you and tell us what glass fusion is.
Glass fusion is putting colored glass together. You cut it nicely or not, and you put it in the oven. The oven will melt it, and then you can have beautiful surprises. But if you cut it in a certain way, then you get your own swimming pool, like this.
So can you pick it up and bring it closer? Okay.
So I have my own pool. You cannot swim in it. But in Corona, it's very nice.
Yeah, and we have swimmers.
Right, and this is the English Channel.
Okay, this is very interesting. So I have the White Cliffs of Dover.
Yes.
I have the landing exactly on the cap.
Yes, yes, and then I make the curve.
Is this one of your curves?
No, no, no. This is just an example.
Okay. Steve, why don't you join us for a minute? We've seen a lot of art about the English Channel. Have you ever seen anything like that, Steve?
No, this is fabulous. This is
show us again. Show us again, Irene. Don't go away. Show us again. And then show us on the side, because it's curved. Show us this way. Yeah. Wow.
If she can speak, that way we can see because Ned, we can only see you when you're talking. Irene, say something.
Yes, yes, I will.
Oh, there we go.
This is like a plate, so you can put oranges in it.
Oh.
Or ice cube.
Beautiful.
And is this your hobby and your profession?
Yes, well, like the swimming, you know, it's not making that much profit.
And when we talk to you in 10 years' time, Irene, will you still be swimming the IJsselmeer and Faroes every year? Will you still be competing cross-country skiing? And will you have broken the 3K ice mile?
Well, I think none of them. I will keep swimming, but I think one day there will be a day that the arms will say, well, it's better to do less.
And if
but I'm still motivated, you know. I like to train, and I'm not going, I think I'm not going to say one day, this was the last, the whole world has to know that was Irene's last marathon.
Tommy Stefanowski from Northern Macedonia, he had 5 or 6 or 7 shoulder operations. Have you been injury-free?
Yes, I'm very lucky.
Is that because you're lucky or your stroke is fabulous?
My stroke is horrible because I make many rotations. So I think also my neck, because I breathe, you know, more often per minute than somebody else, I think one day my head will roll off.
And what is your stroke count in a big swim?
Oh, at least 80.
Oof.
But I started with 100 per minute. And that was in the English channel. And the pilot said, is that normal to my dad? He thought, you know, she can do that for 1 hour. And then, you know, we get like after 3-4 hours, you know, out and back. But, you know, I started with 100 and then I slowed down to 92.
Steve, wasn't Penny Lee Dean famously sort of 84 or something? Is that in my head?
Yes, actually, all of the most of the fastest swimmers have a very high rate. It actually has to do with, you know, they get more propulsion per minute or per hour than anybody else. And Irene, Penny Dean, even the current swimmers on the professional circuit are very high, 75 to 90. And if you consider them at the last kilometer of the Olympic 10K, they're upwards 85, 90. And Irene, you know, Greta Anderson had a tremendous kick. Her pull was a little slower pace, but you know, 80 is spot on.
Okay. Irene, when you watch the Olympics every 4 years, do you wonder what would have happened if the Olympics had been in your time?
Yeah, I've been thinking about that. But when I started to swim, especially in Lake Windermere, they said, oh, we're going to make it Olympic. And that was in 78. And, you know, at that time, oh, that might be nice, you know. And then through all the years, and then, you know, it ended up in 10K.
Which is not your distance. No.
But the funny thing is, I never swam at 10K, you know, only the last 10 years maybe. But when I started to swim, there was no 10K. So I have no idea what my time would have been. Maybe 2:10, 2:15 maybe, you know, not faster than that. So maybe I think it should have been much too short for me.
Maybe you need to sign up for one, set yourself a goal and see what you do next year. Steve, I don't think she can do better than 2:10. What do you think? I don't think there's any way she could do better than 2:10.
Oh, she could have been much faster than 2:10 at her peak. You know, she's now 39 years old, so I think
yeah.
Probably pretty good.
No, but I swim 10 minutes on an 800 meter.
Yes, but you would have done that for 2 hours.
Maybe.
Yeah.
My turns are bad too, of course.
Oh.
Irene, we've run out of time for the interview. We want to thank you very, very much for your time today, and thank you for sharing your incredible career with us.
Yeah, thank you very much. I'd like to say to everybody who watched this, and maybe we have met before, I'd like to say hello and keep well.
Thank you.